Today's coaster war is between Vortex at Kings Island and Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. These are both two classic aero looping coasters, so hopefully this war is pretty close and interesting. Let's get into it. As usual, the categories are height, drop speed, inversions, layout, smoothness, operations, and theming, and each of these coasters will be able to score anywhere up to 10 in each category. In the height category, we'll be basing this off the tallest aero looper, which is Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and that is 188 feet tall. So with the calculator, I calculated it, and Vortex, which is 148 feet tall, gets 8 points, and Loch Ness Monster is 130 feet tall, and it gets 7 points. And Vortex is 140 feet tall, so it'll be earning 8 points. Loch Ness Monster is 114 feet tall, so it'll be earning 6.5 points. Height doesn't matter too much on Loch Ness Monster because it does, in fact, use the terrain a lot. By the way, these are both based off of Viper in this category as well. So I used a calculator, calculated a fraction, turned it into a decimal and a percentage, and boom. Up next is the speed, and these are also both based off of, surprise, surprise, Viper, which is 70 miles an hour. So Vortex goes 55 miles an hour, so it'll be getting 8 points because, once again, I used a calculator. Loch Ness Monster goes 60 miles an hour. You guys may be wondering why. That's because it uses the terrain. It dives over a river and over hills and stuff, of which Vortex is pretty much just on flat land. It uses the terrain a little bit, but not too much. So the score is 24 to 22. Up next, we have inversions. Vortex has 6 inversions. Now, they're awesome inversions, but they are just the typical aero inversions. However, Vortex was one of the first aero coasters to put them all together, and it does have a nice mix. It's kind of interesting how it does the slow corkscrews before the batwing. Most other aero coasters, it did the batwing first and then corkscrews. And this has a nice helix at the end, and it's definitely a different style layout than other aeros. The Loch Ness Monster, it's an older aero coaster, but it has really cool interlocking loops, and it is, I believe it's the only coaster left in the world that has interlocking loops at the moment. So that is really cool. So it'll be earning 6 points for that. The score is 32 to 28. And for the layout, Vortex has a nice mix of different elements. It's very intense too, and it does use the terrain a little bit, but if you'll notice for most of the ride, it's kind of way up above the ground. But for like the Batwing, which goes right by the pathway, which also helps out the layout a bit, it uses the terrain a little bit. It goes really close to the ground, and so does the helix as well. For parts of the ride, it does kind of meander around like after the drop, but besides that, it's pretty much always doing something. Loch Ness Monster, the reason why it's going to be getting more points in this category is because it uses the terrain as interlocking loops, as tunnels, and just it's awesome. And it dives over the river. That's just amazing. So that'll be getting 8 points, and the score is 37 to 36. Loch Ness Monster is catching up. Up next is Smoothness. Now, considering that these are aero coasters, they're not going to be the smoothest ride, but Vortex is pretty smooth for an aero. It's not near as rough as Magnum, which is bumpy and jerky. Vortex was smooth. You can't feel any weld marks in the track, even though they did weld it when they built it because it was built before Magnum. They used welding instead of nuts and bolts. But it's really smooth. It's just jerky a little bit. So it'll be earning 8 points because it's an aero and you got to take that into consideration. Loch Ness Monster, it's about the same, but it can be a little bumpy. So it's older, so it'll be not scoring as high, but it'll still be pretty close. Up next is the most important thing on this list, and that is the operations. Vortex has one of the quickest operations in the park, and just to mention real quick, Kings Island has, if not the best, one of the best operations ever out of any park in the world. It is pretty insanely good, and Vortex, they'll be getting the train out at least every minute, so it'll be earning 10 points. Loch Ness Monster, it's pretty good most of the time, but it can be slow at times. But you know, you have a lot of theming to look at anyway, so you'll be all right. But yeah, the operations aren't as quick as Kings Island, so it'll only be getting about 5 points. Up next is the theming. Now, personally, I don't consider theming to be super important, but a lot of people do. Taylor. So Vortex is themed to a fist-crushing track into a vortex of loops and twists. Now, I like the theming. It's interesting, but there's not really any theming throughout the ride, and there's none throughout the station. So it's only going to get a couple points for being kind of creative with the twists of loops and stuff. I don't know. Loch Ness Monster. The theming in the queue is amazing. There's facts about Nessie. There's like a submarine, and like the station's like it's like themed to like a castle-y type Scottish thing. It's really cool, and the track is yellow like Loch Ness Monster, and it goes into a cave. It's just amazing. Some of the best theming you can find. The reason it's only scoring a 7 is because, I mean, look at some of those coasters in Europe. Whew, that theming's insane. Winning by only 3 points is Vortex at Kings Island. This is considered by me and many others the best aero looper, if not the best aero coaster. I like it better than Magnum. Some people don't, some people do. But I think it's fantastic, and it's about to have its 30th season, so happy birthday, Vortex. Yay. So those of you who do not know, I'm also a member of the Project Coaster Gang now. That is a small group channel about roller coasters, and if y'all want to go help support that, it'd be awesome if y'all could go subscribe, help out that channel. Basically, I was elected the vice president of that channel, so that's really cool. So it'd be cool if y'all go check that out. There'll be another Coaster War probably tomorrow, and that'll be a surprise. It'll be with 2 B&Ms in Ohio, so y'all will like that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button, share button, subscribe button, and I'll see y'all in the next video.